with masks, so we stuck out like sore thumbs without our masks. Um, some context: there were 26 people there total. About four were involved with either speaking or running equipment. So it was a very small group, not much larger than this group. Um, the people who ran it begins with Maureen, I believe her name is Maureen Gallagher, who started Parents' Rights in Education, and they refer to themselves as PRE. Um, Let me tell you, I want to tell you some of the things that they told the people in this group and how they responded. I would say about a third of the people in the audience were old believers, all sitting together, and they had some very strong responses to some of the things that were said. Um, One of the later speakers asked to identify who people were in terms of children in schools, and I thought you'd want to know this. How many of you have kids in public school? Two, and one of them was sitting next to me. Um, how many of you have kids in homeschooling? Three. Everyone else raised their hands for private school. So that was the makeup of the group. This is what they were told. And some of these will be quotes and some will be me summarizing what they said. There was about 2 hours of speaking. Um, Teachers and staff in our public school have been sexualizing students. Teachers have paid students to dance in lingerie at drag queen school events. Teachers have been adapting new names taken by children who are changing their gender without telling parents. They are doing surveys of children as young as 6 on gender designation and sexuality. When a child claims gender dysphoria, they assume the child has been sexually abused by their parents and are probably in danger at home. Children of all ages are being propagandized with BLM, Black Lives Matter, and gay pride posters and flags. School counselors, nurses, and medical clinics are referring children to Planned Parenthood for abortions, chest wrapping, and contraceptives without telling parents. I would say that an inordinate amount of time was spent talking about chest wrapping, which is uh, binding breasts to make to look more like a boy. Schools are holding career days, inviting male and female prostitutes. Obscenity has been normalized in the classrooms. Masks are like the hands over children's mouths when they are sexually abused. And I heard some people laughing. This was neither the worst of it, and each one of these blossomed into a very dramatic story by different people. Some named names. But this was the point where Gary and I were afraid of people laughing and writing these people off, because that is what scares me about this. Everything they had out was done most professionally. They had brochures on heavier paper that were completely glossed, beautifully printed, both sides, excellent graphics, not some half-ass thing. They had a swag of hats and shirts and cups and things, some with fairly subtle messages on it. And their name alone, I'm for Parents' Rights. You might think that because there were not very many people there, this was not a good sign. I want to beg to differ. These people stood and clapped uproariously for some of these things. And these people are the ground troops of the people that want to win in the school boards. And as one of the things in talking to some people afterwards, that I think is important, we're here as progressives sitting in this meeting, and we'll hear some people talk. And I'm not going to say we don't do anything, because I know we do. But these people are down at the ground roots. They're down digging in the dirt. They are planting seeds, and they're ready to spend 5 or 10 years watering, pruning, and fertilizing them. And these are the people who are going to do it. And they were on fire when they left there, because they didn't laugh when somebody said they're inviting prostitutes to career days. You laughed. But these people aren't laughing. And you and I may either think or know that they are completely out of their minds, but it is what they believe. And these are the people who are going to get people to run. Let me tell you the solutions that they offered and spend some good time on. Go to or run for school board. Be a pain in the side for parents' rights. Big round of applause, people nodding. Lawsuits can work, but are long, expensive, and demand a huge commitment. One of the big ones was school choice, and the woman who founded the school choice initiative program was there speaking. And they had quite a, well, let's front end this by saying that they did not get enough signatures to even begin the process for putting initiative on I think the election would have been in 24, because they wouldn't be ready by 22. But they're not going to stop at this. And what they have proposed is that the money follow every student. So let's say the money per child was 10,000. I know it's not that much, we wish. But if Johnny goes to St. Paul's gets that $10,000. Now, money would also be given towards homeschooling, and all the parents' hands shot up. You could see, let's say I've got 4 kids, that's $40,000. But they had solved that problem by giving the money to a nonprofit agency that would give the money to the homeschooling resource businesses. Nonetheless, they were very, very hot on this, and PRI, Parents' Rights in Education, has many county level organizations in all of the states in the West. Most of the speakers talked about having a biblical worldview, and that our job as parents is to build a container for that will keep them safe even in schools, but that they shouldn't be assailed in schools. I thought, as I was watching the excitement and the rage and the enthusiasm of these troops, that we don't have the same thing on our progressive or liberal or non-radical side. We do not have this. And if we don't operate on the grassroots level, this is all going to work. And in order to change it, will take decades, because these people will put people on city councils if they can, city committees. They're not limiting themselves to school boards. They feel that this is a multi-pronged approach, and anywhere there is legislation or laws or regulations being made, that they need to be inside of that. And we have 12 or 14 here. There were 26 there at that meeting. And we are not going to walk out of here with the sense of mission and willingness to throw our bodies on the tracks of this train. And they are. And I came away thinking, we have not adjusted to this new paradigm. And we have to stop laughing at them. We need to take them deadly serious. Some of that, Gary and I didn't say anything, was all that I could do to not. But we have to think about how we're going to do this, we can do what we're doing now right up until the night of the election and feel really good about ourselves. We'll go knock on doors, we'll do that stuff, but they're not taking it simply as getting somebody elected. They're working hard at forming people and giving them the tools to become elected. And they have a lot of money behind them. And they're not playing games. This is a full out, full court press. All the resources they need, people with missions, people who are savvy with social media. We're lucky if we can, get our info. I mean, everybody who is in here works their social media, but that's where it's happening. And you wouldn't believe what the old believers are doing out in the social media. I know we can look at them and think they're old believers, but they are kicking ass out there with young people and young families. And it scared me. It didn't make me laugh. It made me almost cry that we are not doing what we're going to need to do. So that's what I came with. My report, I think I covered most of what they covered. They just told large stories about it, which were horrifying. Chuck?
So this is great you did it, Mike. I'd like to know more about the background, like was it a local meeting or how you found out about it and whatnot. And then what also I've been thinking about as you've been talking is sort of who you need to tell this story to other than us. Like, are you willing to write an op-ed to talk about it? Are you willing to, in addition to that, talk to Democratic leaders, people like, and candidates? I think the unions, I think the education community, sort of the organized education community of the unions, OSEA and OEA, the administrators and the school board association, they need to hear what's happening. Mm-hmm. I've heard about parents and rights in education when I was doing some background research for the last school board race, and some stuff that was coming up, and it was actually maybe before that, and some people who've worked on the statewide level with women's rights issues had mentioned it to me that they're really formidable, that they've been involved in some of the litigation that has happened. I don't know if they were involved in the Dallas School District one or not, but
that attorney was at the meeting.
Yeah, and they there's a national organization, but based in Oregon, like up in Beaverton or somewhere. They have a shopping mall office, and I think you're absolutely right. I can just tell you over my 30 years of doing stuff in Oregon, I hear I've often heard, oh, we need to build the farm team. We need to do stuff to get people to run for school board so they can then run for city council so that they'll then run for state legislature and whatnot. And the left, the Democrats and the left, sort of put both on it, like your Working Families Party, everybody, hasn't ever pulled that off, And these guys are very scary and very organized. And, it's like, today, if that motivated you to do more, it's like, okay, so what organization do you affiliate with? You wouldn't even know as a lefty who to go to, right? Because we don't have the infrastructure.
Yeah, we do not have the infrastructure, right?
Right. So it's not. I mean, there's a number of us who thought when Stand for Children got started, mm-hmm. And their national headquarters is in Portland. Jonah Edelman, the son of Marian Wright Edelman, started it. And a bunch of us thought that was going to be the answer. That was going to be it. But I love a lot of the stuff they've done, but they've also not been that lefty group. They've also done some conservative stuff and aligned with some conservative things. And so, and they haven't been doing the grassroots stuff of sort of getting people to run for office. You don't hear about Stand for Children candidates in school board races around the state. So I think I'd love to hear from you about who you're willing to tell your story with and help you do that. I mean, I think this was an op-ed. I was thinking, well, this is something that some Oregonian investigative reporter or somebody ought to go do as well, and then write about it. And I think
I owned a newspaper, so I have no problem going and doing any of that. I didn't want to do anything. Right. I went pretty much on behalf of this group, but I tell you, aside from everything else, right here with these 13 or 14 people, when you hear stories that are as ridiculous as this, I wouldn't laugh.
Oh, I know.
I would remind yourself that these are people that, based on what they fear and they hear, they're out there tilling the ground and planting the seeds. And our laughing, well, they love that. This is perfect. Yeah, we're just ridiculous. Fine, that's okay.
Well, I'd love to work with you on doing an op-ed for the Oregonian. So,
Yep.
and I think you should also do sort of a summary memo of it that you could share with some of the education activists in the state as a wake-up call. So let's talk after the meeting. So.
Certainly.
I think the group that worked with the Salem Kaiser School District, that was a whole group of different organizations. And I think that would be a good one to talk to, because they worked so hard on the Salem Kaiser School Board, and Lee knows who all was in the group. Lee, you have your hand up.
Yeah, no, I was going to say the same thing. You're absolutely right that if we sit here and we just do what we do, it's not going to change. But a coalition was built around the Salem Kaiser School District election that brought in the unions, that brought in Stand for Children, that brought in BIPOC groups. A huge coalition was built, lots of money was raised, and we won 4 seats on the Salem Kaiser Education Association board, and it's tipped it more to a progressive body for the first time in history, and with a lot more Latinx members. And we're still working with that coalition. That coalition is planning for the future. And our big push would be to broaden this coalition Marion County wide and really start building for all the school districts and getting this coalition working. At the right wing was fighting in that election as well, really hard. These same kind of players, and they were beaten soundly in the Salem Kaiser race. So there is a possibility, if we start linking in with our brothers and sisters around the county and start building a progressive coalition all over the county. Just an idea.
Right on. I'm ready.
Kathy?
I'm retired.
Kathy?
I would just say that we need to also look at our town or the smaller newspapers, because I don't have a subscription to the Oregonian and the big papers, but I do look at the Our Town, and I think we have to start looking at more grassroots levels of where the people. I'm not on social media that much, but that's where a lot of the people are going back and forth about things. And so they've got to get correct information. And for some reason, the truth is not getting out there. So
you're absolutely right. Our town, it used to be not as much anymore, the Silverton Appeal, but around the state, the small papers are read. They're still thriving, actually, and surviving. There are some new electronic papers like the Oregon Capital Chronicle and the Salem Reporter, and there's one out of Ashland now that came when the Mail Tribune got shut down. They set up a nonprofit news site called Ashland News. There's one south of Eugene, like the Highway 58 or whatever it is, news. So I think doing something that you could publish in more than one place, some place will take them if they're published elsewhere. I think the Oregonian's good for getting it in front of some certain political people who need to hear it. But you're absolutely right. And it needs to be broad. I mean, what they did in Salem was, a long time coming. It was a couple election cycles to happen, but it needs to happen locally so that we start outing them on it. Outing their friends who have those same wacko views, right?
Well, yeah,
Doug?
It hasn't been,
Yeah.
I'm sure we all know that it's not very effective to tell people that what they believe is not true. It just is not. Telling people what the facts are is not, there's no movement there. And we know now that's not effective, but we have to be out communicating what it is that we're for, what it is that we're proposed, what it is we advocate for.
Right, but if you're, think about those people out there, your neighbors or whatever, who don't think about this stuff at all, and letting them know what a group of people are thinking, so they reach the same conclusions that you and I reach, that, oh, those are wacko ideas. And I think is helpful. We have to have our agenda, but I think in educating more, some people don't realize just how wacko some of these folks are, right?
I have a question for Chuck.
Go ahead, Charles.
I think this is what we've been given here tonight is a picture of what's going on nationally. And part of the, I think a major part of the problem is we've sort of loosed ourselves from factual information and truth. And so I've just reflected on what I could do. It's not just that I think these people are wacko, but my life history has given me the ability to discern factual truth from misinformation. And I just frankly do not have a way that I know to organize, and I'm not sure op-ed is the answer or news articles are the answer. Well-educated and informed people are the answer. And I think if these wackos present their case to the voting public, my belief is that the voting public will see it for what it is and reject it. But so far, my view is proven to be incorrect.
It is incorrect.
Yeah, I mean, your view was trumped, right? Right? I mean, we also remember how many votes Trump got, right? And then people are still sticking with him. And so, I just think that we need to talk about it. I think one of the things to do, I think the school officials, the superintendent, administrators, and the entire school board sort of get off the hook, not having to address the real thoughts that are happening. So, the old believers have been in front of our school board, and it was 2 years ago, they came in, or it's maybe 3 now, that they said, we're going to set up our own school. And they did, up in Monitor, right? And they're part of that group. And so, and they were talking about sex education in the school, not as graphically or as wacko ideas out front, as you mentioned, Mike, but that was their issue. And I think what's needed is for our school board, and I think even going to the city council and other places, but the school board needs to say, we want to be clear with the community. There's people in this community who are putting out misinformation on social media and at meetings like this one, and we want to be clear. And I want to have this board all acknowledge we're not bringing prostitutes in, and acknowledge, we're not doing all those things that are on your list, and have them say it. Make an Aaron Koch have to say it. Because, frankly, if they resist it, it's a sign that they believe it. And so I just think we need to do that. But, but as far as changing the elections, I think Mike's absolutely right. They're organizing at the grassroots. And they're getting people, who's out there getting people to go to school board meetings all over the state? No one, other than Stand for Children, right? It's small groups like, Friends of Music or whatnot, but we're not doing it on a big area, a lefty effort to try to get more people to run for office, get involved in their school board and then run.
I do have a suggestion for this group. Everybody sitting here right now. Stop calling them wackos. This is not getting us anywhere. And don't assume that they're not smart, educated, brilliant people. They are. This is the mistake we're making. We're not in the same game we used to be in. In the last few years, something has fundamentally changed, and that is you can watch news every day, listen to talk radio to and from any place in this country, You can turn on TV and watch news live, and it will all say the same thing. And it is the lies that we're talking about. But we aren't there. We're not.
So what do we
in
call
that.
the lies? What do we call the lies?
Well, I
So
think
I agree we shouldn't call them wacko. They're wacko ideas. They're wacko thoughts. What do we call them, Mike?
Let me interrupt you for just a minute because Jamie McLeod Skinner is coming on. We can carry this conversation after, but also this is a recording that
Good.
people can share where Mike explained what happened at this meeting, and you can share
Yeah.
it with your friends.
Yeah.
But let me let Jamie in and then we can continue after. And I do want to talk about who's running for mayor and city council seats when Jamie is finished.